Hi, I'm Tom, your DM and host, and today we're going to be talking about electric and flying types. I'm joined today with Lavix,
Hey guys.
Frostwolf,
Hello.
and Jordan.
Oh, hi there.
Well, hi there, don't you know, and Zarayu.
Sup?
All right, so we're going to start with, let's start with flying types, since I feel that's a good place for us to begin. Now, a little background about flying types before we start getting into some of the interesting things that people come across in Poke D&Ds. Flying types are very unique typing when it comes to not only their personalities, but the way they act, the way they work, and just in general, a lot of the traits that they have. Flying types are personality based Pokemon. Now, when I say personality based Pokemon, I'm not talking about, like your passion based Pokemon. We've been talking about fire or things of that nature. We're talking about a flying type holds a personality to a awkward level. Now, awkwardness in that level can be like, for example, you ever see a guy who plays guitar all the time? Now, he's not passionate about the guitar, and it isn't like his whole life is centered around that guitar, but he plays it a lot of the time. That guy is a flying type. The same way that Elton John, he's also actually a really good example of a flying type. Elton John has this kind of personality that is held to such a level that it becomes awkward. Now, I personally believe that awkward isn't something that's bad. Awkward just means it has a certain effect on a person that makes them a bit uncomfortable, as anybody can be when you get exposed to something that high tier in their devotion to that certain aspect. Another interesting personality that people would kind of find and understand is the Adam West from Family Guy. That particular Adam West is a flying type, and actually in a D&D that we have going, he is actually the flying gym trainer or the flying gym leader. So when you start understanding these personality typings are what make a flying type different from the others, you also then have to look at, well, their weaknesses, right? All right. So we'll go ahead and talk about its weakness to electric first, just because it's also going to be in this video. Electric types, and we'll go into more detail here and about that in a bit. Electric types in general, just they're attention whores. And once again, most of my descriptions are never meant to be derogative in any nature, but that's what they are. They're attention whores. They have a showgirl mentality. Now you put a flying type in there, a person who has that awkward personality, that person who probably doesn't have a lot of friends, or he might have a lot of friends, but it isn't going to be, that middle point. You put an attention whore in that social dynamic. You put a electric type in that flock, and you're going to see the flock dynamic break down, and that's how I see the weakness from flying to electric types forming. Now, you also got their weakness to rocks, if I am correct. Now, when it comes to things like that, you got to understand about rock types, and what's their rock types? What does rock type even mean? What does it do? How do they function? Now, by this point, there will be a video about ground, rock, and steel types. I highly suggest you watch that if you haven't, to fully get to understanding of how rock types work. But in the weakness point of it, a rock type fractures, and it fractures pretty hard when it does so. And when it fractures, it causes damage. It's a very shattering, no pun intended, event. You put somebody awkward, somebody who doesn't know they're really doing this, somebody who this is how they are naturally, this personality is how they are, and that personality causes somebody to fracture. The delicacy of that Pokemon, the delicacy of flying type Pokemon and of that person comes out, and that's why I see that rock type being effective against the flying type, at least in personality. Now, I mean, of course, when it comes to battling moves, you throw a rock at a bird, birds are frail, they're going to take damage. It just makes sense. You hit a bird with lightning, it has no ground, it gets fried. I mean, the understandings behind that pretty rock solid when it comes to the physical functions of the
That was
weaknesses.
a horrible pun.
Oh, God, I know it was, right?
That was hard to swallow.
Oh,
Two for the price of
God.
one.
Damn.
I
that
guess
was-
you could say you're hitting two birds with one stone.
Oh, Jesus Christ. No.
I don't even know. You know, I had to decide whether or not to mute you before we started this. I'm starting to regret my decision now with that pun.
Love you, Tom.
We're talking
Yeah,
about
yeah, yeah, I
birds.
bet you do. Now, the final weakness, of course, being ice. And once again, birds fly south for the winter all the time. Birds can't handle the cold. They're not very good at it. Once again, the physical reasons why they're weak to it just kind of seem obvious. Now, ice types, just so you know a little bit about personality bases as to why the personalities could also be weak against or could be weak against ice, is that ice types tend to be fragile, but they also tend to be incredibly cold. And when I say that, I mean an ice type moves freeze opponents solid. They have that chance. That's not a very kosher form of CC. It's not a very nice form of CC. It's actually just incredibly dickish, to be completely honest. You freeze a Pokemon solid, the chance of frostbite goes up, the chance of death goes up, and we're talking about in a realistic sense here. We're not talking about like in the Pokemon game. It's a very harsh manner. You put that harshness once again in with the fragility of a flying type, its awkwardness, not knowing it's causing damage, and you can just see once again how the personality can break down. Anytime somebody becomes fragile and they break, you have a high chance of their personality just going haywire, and that's when you get your broken flying types. And as sad as it is, you can kind of see this kind of thing happening when you see people break in school. Those people were probably flying types that interfered with a electric, ice, or a rock type, and their breaking was inevitable because of that. So with that kind of description, what I'm curious about is we have quite a few flying types in this TeamSpeak. We have quite a few that play Poke D&D, but no one's really delved into the flying type training. One flying type is actually trying really hard to understand them, and he's actually kind of new to the D&Ds. I didn't mention him at first, but I'm going to go ahead and bring him in now. Chris.
Yes.
You're the only flying type that's actually attempted to understand flying types. Why?
Well, you have to understand yourself before you can understand others, so I kind of needed to know more about how my type is.
I mean, that's a pretty valid reason. I would say. Now, you have, if I'm correct, in the Pokken D&D that is not being broadcasted, you have a Muro, which is a pure flying type. An Amarero. There we go. Couldn't speak it. And you also have another fake Pokemon that isn't actually a Pokemon and it's not flying, so we won't worry about it. With your interactions and the Pokken D&Ds you've managed to deal with, I'm still curious about it. You're a flying ice type, so right within your personality, you have a kind of hypocrisy, and you understand what I've said about flying types can be fragile. Their awkwardness can be apparent to people, even if they don't see it themselves. With the other flying types, one of them being Frostwolf,
Hello.
Frostwolf being a fire flying type, and another one he's been mentioned before in some of these recordings, but he isn't here with us today. Little David, he's a ground flying type. Tell me, can you kind of see the flyingness in them? I mean, birds of a feather are supposed to flock together, right?
Yeah. I can somewhat see it, but I've noticed their other traits pop out a lot more.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, are there any training tips, things of that nature I would give to a flying type? That's a question I think I'm going to ask myself. Tips I would give to flying type trainers when it comes to things of a feather manner. You need to understand your Pokemon pretty well. I mean, flying types are not naturally the strongest. They're not most of the time the fastest. They have a lot of good abilities, but once again, you put that on a mediocre Pokemon and you have a mediocre chance of winning, even if the ability's good. So you've got to understand the strengths of your individual flying type. Each flying type has their own beauty, their own uniqueness that's just waiting there. And it's going to be apparent because they're a flying type, right? Within themselves is that overt personality. I mean, look at the Pharaoh. A Pharaoh in every anime is always a Pharaoh. You know it by heart. You know its call. You know when you see it, you're like, it's gonna be a jackass, and it's gonna try to kill or attack something. It's sad and it's unfortunate to stereotype it, but that's the personality of the Pharaoh. The same way that you see Pidgeotos and Pidgeots in the anime, and you can say, okay, look at that. That Pokemon is majestic. It probably is a very regal, probably a basic trainer. It's probably a really good friend. And most Pidgeotos and Pidgeots you see follow that exact same stereotype. And once again, that's because their personalities are so evident. You see it and you go, I know it. I feel you, brother. I pick up what you put down. Yo.
So,
Yes?
just throw it out there. I mean, you've talked a lot about the personality of a flying type, but as the only pure type here, I'm gonna go ahead and ask, what would a pure flying type be? What would it look like? Who would that be? Because I'm just interested.
Now, pure flying types, up until recently, even in the game, pure flying types just didn't exist. And it's because the concept of a personality that's awkward for the sake of being awkward and evident for the sake of being evident, it's pretty hard to imagine. And even myself, I had a really hard time thinking, what would a pure flying type personality be? And then it hit me. This is when I came up with the flying gym leader. A person who's overtly awkward, who draws attention, but not because he's an attention whore, but because of the awkwardness within himself, and because of the evidence within himself of who he is, would have to be, like I said, the character Adam West in the Family Guy show. It's probably the best example I could give you. It's a person whose personality, his craziness, is. I mean, it's evident. I can't say it any more ways than I have, honestly, at this point. The personality is just there. You see him, you know him, you see Adam West, you saw him act one time, and from there on, you pretty much know what he's going to do. Even if you don't technically know the actions he will do, you know the state of mind that he will be in when he does those actions. You know the personality. It's easy to read. Just as easy it is when you see a bird flying through the sky. You don't know where it's going. You don't know what it's doing. But you have a good guess because you know that type of bird. Same way looking at a pure flying type. You look at them and you won't know what they're doing. You won't know where they're going. But you have a good guess because you know what that type of person does. They're the stereotypical Pokemon. That's just the truth. That's the truth of them. And that's probably what I'd say to that. That would be a pure flying type. Now, of course, you got pure flying types, and that each pure flying type could be something radically different. Flying types are incredibly huge. Just as like there are multitudes of birds out in this world, you can have multiple different ways for a flying type personality to exist in the world. They're not always going to be funny, and they're not always going to be sad. It can range from massive amounts of sadness. Like I have a friend, his name is Evan. He is a flying dark type. His flying type comes out in the fact that he's got a very dark sense of humor and a very dark personality. And when that comes out, even no pun intended for his second type being dark, that doesn't even play into it. It's awkward, but you know it's him. And when he comes into a conversation and you make a joke, you have a pretty good guess how he's going to follow it up. And he's going to follow it up with something dark because he's obvious. The evidence of his personality is facial. You can see it, you can understand it, you can grasp it, you can move on with your life. And that's just another example. Now, the reason I'm talking so much about the personalities, of course, too, is because when it comes to the flying types, their personalities can do a lot with them. I mean, just one move in particular that I'll make mention of, Brave Bird. Brave Bird is a great example. And it's a move that, if I am right, now correct me if I'm wrong on this, guys, because it has been a long day. Brave Bird is a move that does high damage, but it also damages the user, if I'm
Yeah,
correct.
it has a lot of recoil.
Has a lot of recoil. You take that move and you go, where's the basis of that move? Where it's a dive bomb, okay, you know, a bird dives into it, of course they're going to take recoil. That's the physical reasons for it. You put that into a personality and you go, okay, that's a flying type being brave. That's a flying type speaking out about something. We'll just say that, all right? Make this leap with me. That's a flying type speaking out against something. He's being brave. That flying type's always going to get recoil. Always, because once again, what we talked about earlier, they have an awkward personality. They're awkward within themselves. They're not going to have too large of a social network, or maybe their social network's so large that you have a flock of people doing Brave Bird, and then the reek will spread out. But it's going to be there because they're going to get backlash. Now, there are certain types out there that can be brave, and they get no backlash, or even if they get backlash, they don't take damage from it, and that's the important part of it. They're taking damage when it happens. They're fragile. Their personality's fragile, their body's fragile. That's another key point I want to drill into your heads, is that flying types are fragile creatures too. And if you don't understand that they're fragile, then you'll end up getting them killed. And that's just the truth of it. All right, so I feel like that's a pretty good explanation of flying types.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
I feel like we cover that pretty well. Now on to the one that a lot of people have been wanting some information on, which is electric type Pokemon. Now,
amazing.
I mean, there you go. Electric type Pokemon are, they're interesting. All right, an electric type Pokemon. As a basis, before we really begin the discussion, I said earlier that they're attention whores. Electric type, when it comes to your personality, is always a amplifier. For example, if you happen to be for example, Lavix is a great example of this. Lavix, where's your electric typing in?
It's my tertiary.
It's your tertiary typing. You go water, ghost, electric. If it's in your tertiary or quaternary typing, it's going to be an amplifier. And when I say amplifier, I mean it increases some aspect of you to a point in which it gathers attention. For example, it amplifies Lavix's ghost type, which is why we know him as crazy as he is. I mean, not crazy as in like, Jesus Christ, put him in a house of some kind with a straitjacket.
That you know of.
Well, true. But more of the lines of, oh, that's Lavix. He's crazy. I mean, he does a crap ton of voices, and that's the evidence of his electric type coming forth in his ghost type personality. I mean, then we've got Jordan. He's also a person, if I'm right, that has a tertiary electric typing.
Also a person.
What was that, Jordan?
I am also a person. This is correct.
That is factual. We have confirmed this. He is a person, not a bag of rice or a rice ball or something of that nature. I don't know what we'd assume he would be. And so his electric typing comes out and reinforces his normal typing. See, that's why he's so perfectly normal, is that within his own primary and secondary typing, which is both normal, which is how he's a pure type normal, that tertiary lightning type comes out and goes, you're not just normal. You're normal, and you're known for being normal. That type of personality comes out, and it hits you, and it's an attention whore. It's a showgirl mentality. You gather that attention based on that personality aspect of you. Now, when it's secondary, it takes on a little bit more of the literal meaning of a showgirl mentality. A secondary lightning type personality or primary type electric personality would end up getting a lot of attention, and for the reasons they choose. And that's the important part for you to understand. Lightning types like being the center of attention. They want to be the center of attention, and they will get the center of attention. Good examples of this that may be in your life is you ever see a girl who dresses kind of slutty for the sake of being noticed? She probably has some type of lightning type in her personality. She's wanting attention, and she's going to get that attention. Yeah, just the same thing as that Miley Cyrus recently with the craziness she's been going through as a celebrity, and how hoary she's been looking, and the tongue sticking out, and the ass, and all that. Those, I'm not saying she's an electric type, but I'm saying that's some examples of a.
You sound like a
electric
70-year-old
types.
man.
I know. How horrible is this?
Kids.
I
You're
try to
twerking.
damn kids with your Molly Cyrus acting all whorish. Well, back in my day, only a woman was allowed to wear a dress.
Also, I'm not sure how I feel about you like trying to say Miley Cyrus has an ass. It's kind of like two battered pancakes.
Listen, I don't pay attention to her ass. I don't know. That's what the kids tell me.
Nope,
Damn
definitely
kids.
has
Yeah,
an
damn
ass.
kids. Anyways,
Another thing you
go
said
ahead.
that was a lot about electric, which I think comes out a lot in me, is they're also gamblers.
Oh yeah, they are. Well, I mean that can be the truth of it too. I mean, once again, it's a gamble to try to get the people's attention. You're gonna make an assumption. This is how I get people's attention. This is how I can draw focus to myself. I'm gonna make that gamble that it works. Does it pay off? Hopefully, fucking so. Most of the time, it can. Electric type personalities are gamblers, but they're also winners.
As a
We're
wise-
number one.
Number one.
As a
Like-
wise man once said, Lavix, you can agree to this. It's
So
quite
would
simple
Charlie
to just
Sheen
go,
be an
which is
electric
just
type?
go gamble and win. Go for it. That's all you need. That's an electric type right there.
I don't even know what to say to that, honestly.
All you need to know is gamble and win, Tom.
All you need is love. All right, so So, with that being said, okay, you're gonna understand they seem pretty shallow, but that being said, there isn't a lot of depth to electric types. Just as much as there isn't depth to electricity, it travels a set way, it acts a set way. You know where it comes from, you know where it's gonna go, you know its path. It's not a very hard thing to understand. And once again, like flying types, which is why we've grouped them in together today. So, with that being their personality, I'd talk more about their like how they work and their typings and their physiology and how their power manifests. I mean, their power can manifest in any multiple ways. Most electric Pokemon that I see in this world, most fake Pokemon in my world, all have the pretty same background story when it comes to how they make electricity. It's either the friction in their muscles, some type of gland that specializes in the creation of current, things of that nature. It's a lot like an electric eel in the manner they generate the electricity through these type of manners. Some of them store it within their body as they eat it. For example, a lot of the mice type Pokemon that are electric get it from outlets. I mean, you can find them chewing on phone wires to get their electrical powers, things of that nature. We can understand all how they get that, and that's not the important thing, and we don't need to talk about that, which is why I focus so heavily on their personality. Now, the weaknesses to an electric type. Now, this is a bit of a conversation for me because they only have really one weakness, and that's ground types, right? Now, yeah.
I think they have more.
No, it's just ground.
Yeah, they only have ground type as a weakness. Now, with that weakness, you have to understand ground types. And once again, by the time this came out, you also have access to the ground type typing. So I suggest you go watch that. Probably that whole episode before this one would do you quite well. But ground types, once again, I've spoke about it before. They're patient. They're incredibly patient. They take a lot of hits. They can do a lot of damage. Pretty much, you can't really move the earth past the way it's supposed to move. And when it moves, you're still just moving dirt from one place on the earth to another place on the earth. You're still really not even messing with it. You go ahead, you put an attention whore on that thing, on that quiet, patient earth. You make that showgirl dance in circles. Is it gonna worry about it? No.
Oh, man.
No, man. No, it ain't gonna give a shit about it. It's patient. It'll outlast the electric type. Because once again, the electric type, it's trying to get attention, and if it's not gonna get attention, it's gonna change it up. It's gonna try to move. It's ever moving, ever searching for that best route. Alright? That best route to the ground. Well, not in the typing, but in the earth, in the physiological sense. Now, the weakness to the ground comes when this occurs. It hits the ground, and what happens? It finds somebody that it can't impress. It finds somebody it can't get the attention of. It finds somebody who just doesn't care, which is what ground types can do. They can just not care. They can take the abuse and not worry about it. And when that happens to an electric type, they fizzle out. The energy drains. When an electric type comes across that opponent that they can't win against, they burn out. They lose their charge.
That or something far worse can happen.
Well, of course. They can also go opposite and become violent, but once again, what are they going to do to the ground type? Nothing. You just can't. It's just the honest truth of it. You can't mess with them. Now, that's the personality reasons behind why I think electric is weak to ground. The physiology reasons why they're weak and the physical reasons why they're weak is once again evident, but we'll talk about them just so that we can get that generalized. You hit something that's electrically charged with mud, you're gonna keep it from doing electricity, and even worse, you're gonna cause the currents in it to drain out of it. And at this point, we've talked about how these electric type Pokemon, at least when it comes with the mice type Pokemon, and a lot of some of the other types of electric type Pokemon, have to gather their electricity within them, or they have to eat it, or they might have a low amount of ability to make it. I mean, of course, Pikachu in the anime is a difference, but I mean, I have my own personal theory about why Pikachu's different with all the other Pokemon in the anime, and that's a whole nother conversation for a different video. But you drain them of the electricity, and it's the same thing as being twice as effective against them. You drain an electric type of their only way to attack, and I mean, what do they have left? Nothing. They might as well be fainted, and you hit them with a giant ball of mud, and damn it, I mean, I'm assuredly it's gonna hurt them, right? So that's kind of the physiology reasons why, or the physical reasons why they're going to get damaged. These twice effective by ground types. You know, you trap them underneath a bunch of sand. Once again, their current, it's getting drained away because they're at the root. They're at the most lowest point. It's where the electricity wants to go. Things of that nature.
So what are some good tips for training an electric type?
Well, training an electric type, it's gonna be interesting. Well, first things first, you gotta remember, of course, they're wanting attention, and they're gonna need attention, and they're gonna be kind of, hey, look at me a bit. If you understand that, you can go, okay, I'm gonna have to give this Pokemon a bit more attention than the rest of my Pokemon, and it might be good, it might be bad. You might have Pokemon you can't do that with. These are things you need to take into consideration when you have that electric type. Now, second of all, when you're training it, you also have to come to the realization that thing's gonna be throwing around lightning. Yay! And when it throws around lightning, and static fields, and shock waves, the chances of things being caught up in it, and by things I mean you, drastically increase. So you're also going to need to kind of take the thought, and you're going to have the foresight to go, maybe rubber-soled shoes aren't the worst thing I could invest in. maybe standing a couple 20 feet back from my Pokemon when it trains isn't the worst thing.
Maybe carrying around a giant metal pole that you put between you and it.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, if it's coming at you, it'll hit the pole.
Maybe,
I thought you meant holding the pole at it. And I was like,
God, no.
No, I was like, that's actually the worst thing you could do.
No,
at
you
that
stick
point.
the pole, you walk back, you put the pole between you and it.
So you hold the pole in
Yeah.
the rain while you're
Yes.
training it, right?
Yes,
That's
and then
exactly
thunder.
right.
So
Mhm.
what you need to go ahead and do is take your face and rub it on your Pokemon as it's doing its moves. That way you can't go wrong.
This sounds like all very good tips for dying. So everybody should write this down
I got that
so
down
that.
in my notes, Tom.
Thank God. I'm very important. Very happy about that. All right. So with that being said, like I said, training an electric type is mainly just about forethought. They're dangerous Pokemon, and they're also kind of needy and attention-wise. If you can recognize those two things before you go into training it, and of course, every Pokemon's personality is different. It's not that they're not going to want attention, but maybe how they get that attention, how they act out may be different. With training electric types, like I was trying to say, it's just about forethought. You got to sit down, talk to yourself for a bit, go, okay, I need this, that, and this. I can expect this, that, and this. Okay, I understand. This is how I need to deal with this Pokemon. I love him to death, and so I want to make sure that he can feel safe and that I can be safe while he's safe. And with those things all gathered together, you could have a good relationship with that electric type, all right?
And the real
I have a
question is,
question for you, Tom. Oh,
go ahead.
Go
First.
Okay. What about like an interaction between two electric types? Like they're both trying to fight for that struggle for the most attention.
Now, a lot of this depends on the types of electric types you're going to be dealing with. Electric types, when they meet each other, for another example, I like using them because there's a plethora of these Pokemon, the mice electric type Pokemon. A lot of the times in the Pokedex entries and in the anime, when they talk, they mention, sparks will fly from their cheeks when they're talking to each other and be able to talk to each other through the electrical currents. You take that and you go, okay, at least they're having a conversation with you. And so I proposition you with this. When you have multiple showgirls on a stage, are they fighting each other for attention, or are they working together to get more attention?
They're working together. So.
Exactly. And that's the difference with different types of electric type Pokemon. If they can work together to get more attention, why wouldn't they? It's the obvious choice. But that being said, if the way they want to get attention is two different manners, they might clash, they might fight. But in that fighting, are they not getting more attention?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like Plusle and Minun, how they just look so well together that they would get more attention.
Well, exactly. That's actually a great example once again.
And one without the other, no one cares.
I think it's safe to say that, no matter, how different the two Pokemon are, they will get more attention because, just like with electricity, the easiest path will pretty much always come out, I feel.
That's correct, Jordan. That's a great assumption from this little discussion. Well, I feel like we covered electric types good. We covered flying. Oh.
There's
yes.
one deck question that still needs to be answered, Tom.
Oh, you go ahead.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how common are piercings with electric types?
Well, I mean, me personally, I don't understand why more electric types don't have giant piercings, because I just find them appropriate on electric types. I think there needs to be more Pikachus out there with ear piercings.
I think just like most electric types would have, the whole lesbian ears thing going on.
Well, I mean, of course, and if a lightning, Jesus, I keep wanting to say it. If we're talking with an electric type, and they're a lesbian. Well, I mean, of course they're gonna have piercings. The most, hey, look at me type of lesbian's gonna be a Bulldyke. As much as I love Bulldykes, and let me tell you something.
I'll tell you what.
Let me tell you what. I love me some lesbians.
That's a clean burning lesbian right there.
That's a clean burning lesbian.
Is there a Christian agenda?
Oh God. All right. I feel with that, are we good now? Is everybody happy?
That's a good way to cap it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
We'll
a beautiful
further
way
from here.
Yeah, we're going further down the mouse hole with that one.
Going to the deep south.
Oh my God. All right. With that, I've been here with Lavix.
Hey.
I've been here with Jordan.
Don't forget those piercings.
Of course, I've been here with Chris.
Hello.
And Zarayu.
Have a good one.
And Frostwolf.
Why am I last?
Because I love you the least.
I expect.
And I'm your host and DM, Tom. And we'll see you next time.
Release the good.